Hello and welcome back to Supposedly Fun. My name is Greg and I am here to wrap up the week in reading with my standard Friday Reads video, which I film on a Friday and post on a Saturday. That's just the way I do things. A little backwards, maybe, but my channel, my rules. It's been a little quiet this week compared to last week in terms of bookish things, because last week we had really big book award announcements with the Women's Prize long list, the International Booker Award long list. The biggest news we had this week was that in the LGBTQ in translation read-along, we announced what the winner of the voting was. So the selection for April and May is Before Night Falls by Reynaldo Arenas, translated by Dolores M. Koch. I will put the announcement video in the description box down below if you would like to check it out. I'm also going to put a link to the Discord server if you would like to join in. There will also be discussion of the runner-up, which was Disoriental by Negar Javadi and translated by Tina Cover. Really looking forward to this, and again, I'll put details in the description box down below if you would like to join in. And again, I'll just say one more time, I found a copy of this book used through Powell's for a good price, and it is in good condition. So if you would like to join in, it should be fairly easy to find a copy for yourself. There was actually another book award that announced nominees this week. It's the Lambda Literary Awards, or the Lammys. I'll put my reaction to their announcement in the description box down below if you would like to check it out. One interesting semi-conversation that came out of that was that it turns out you don't actually have to be LGBTQ to be nominated for a Lammy. You just have to write a book that has good representation for that category. And this specifically came from The Matrix by Lauren Groff, which kind of got me on that train thinking about that, because I don't know how Lauren Groff identifies her sexuality, but she is married to a man and has children. However, Matrix was nominated for Best Lesbian Fiction, and the main character of that book is a lesbian. It is good representation, but it does feel a little bit weird because most other book awards don't really open themselves up to people who don't qualify in that category, even if they wrote a book about a character that would qualify. And I don't quite know how I feel about that. I think I'm fine with it. I don't really have strong opinions, but it is interesting, I think. And if you have thoughts, I'd love to hear them in the comment section down below. Outside of bookish news, I had actually mentioned this when I filmed my Friday Reads video last week, but I got the name of the movie wrong and just edited out the portion where I talked about the movie completely. I watched Drive My Car last week. For some reason, when I filmed my Friday Reads video, every time I meant to say Drive My Car, I said The Power of the Dog. I don't know where that came from in my head, but it was a consistent enough mistake and a bad enough one that just putting a little footnote at the bottom of the screen saying I meant to say this movie didn't really cover it. So I just cut it out of the video completely and saved it for this week to mention. I liked it. It's nominated for at least 4 Oscars, I think. Best Picture, Best Director, I want to say Best Adapted Screenplay, and Best International Feature. And I liked it, but I had a couple of little problems with it. The main thing that happened was that I had a really annoying viewing experience with it. It's streaming on HBO Max now, and the subtitles just stopped working about 45 minutes in, and it's a 3-hour movie. And I don't speak Japanese, so this was a big problem for me. I tried everything. I tried turning subtitles off. I tried turning them back on. I tried turning the TV off. I tried turning the TV back on. I tried everything. Nothing would get the subtitles back. So I just waited until the next day and tried again. The subtitles still weren't working. For some reason, the only thing that would get them back was if I went to the beginning of the movie and tried again. It was really annoying because, again, it's a 3-hour movie and I already had 45 minutes in. And what I found was if I tried to fast forward, the subtitles would go off again for some reason. So I had to just let that extra 45 minutes play, and I could not interrupt the movie because if I did, the subtitles would go away again and I'd have to start all the way from the beginning. So maybe that experience lends itself to this thought, which is that I don't think that movie needed to be 3 hours. I can see how that kind of irritation with just letting it play all the way through would build into that. But I also think that's a fair read of that movie. Also, pretty early on, I started thinking some of the aspects of the movie were a little bit weird. And then I pulled up the IMDb page because I wanted to verify which awards it was nominated for at the Oscars, and saw the screenplay nomination, but it was an adapted. And I looked at the source material, and it's based on a short story by Haruki Murakami. And suddenly a lot of those elements that I was kind of finding a little problematic made sense. I like Haruki Murakami. The Wind Up Bird Chronicle, I remember being a really great book, but I haven't read it since 2009. And I wonder if I would think the same if I read it again now. But he kind of has problematic depictions of women, and you can see where that plays into Drive My Car, because the movie opens with a scene in which a woman who is naked is telling a story, and she's clearly asleep or in some kind of a trance. And it turns out that this character is a great screenwriter, but she has writer's block in regular life. If she has sex, she goes into a trance and just starts telling a story, and then she won't remember the story, so somebody has to tell it back to her, and she'll write it down, and that's how she writes her screenplays. And the second I heard that the screenplay was based on a story by Haruki Murakami, it's like, this checks out. Absolutely checks out. Problematic depiction of women and sex and all of that. Having said that, I thought it was a good movie. If you've seen it, I'd love to hear what you thought in the comment section down below. Let me know. Hopefully you managed to avoid the weird subtitle problems I was having. By the way, I should mention, every other movie, TV show, or whatever that I tried to watch would have subtitles, no problem. For whatever reason, it was just Drive My Car that had that problem. Don't know why that would be, but there you go. And actually, I'm going to put a link to a channel and a specific video from Books and Bow. I mentioned in my reaction to the Lambda Literary Awards that I discovered Books and Bow this past week, and I'm really enjoying that channel. I don't think this is the channel that a lot of you probably have not discovered yet, because they have about 12,000 subscribers. But I'm going to link it down below anyway, just in case, because I hadn't seen it. It was a blind spot of mine. And thank you to Reed Becca for recommending the channel to me. I'm going to put both of those channels in the description box down below so you can check them out if you will. But I'm going to specifically link to a video of Books and Bow that talks about Haruki Murakami and the book IQ84, which I have not read, but pretty succinctly lays out the problems I have had with Haruki Murakami in the past. So if you'd like to check it out, please take a look down below. I really love the way they talk about translated literature, and I feel like I have potential to become a translated literature fan, but we'll see how that goes. It's way, way, way too early to think about that, and I would actually have to read some of these books in order for that to become weaponized and reality. This is in the wake of the International Booker long list, which I'll also link my reaction to in the description box down below. And again, thank you to Reed Becca. I actually went back into the comments for the International Booker video and found Reed Becca's comment, because the search function in comments is really, really bad. It just so happened that in this case, I knew exactly what video to go to look for the comment. So if you ever hear me saying, I can't remember who left this comment, it's not that I'm trying to deliberately forget you. It's not that I'm lazy. It's just that the search function is kind of a mess. So if more time passes, it gets really hard to remember when something was mentioned or where. Just FYI, that doesn't really mean anything. But just so you know, I don't forget these things on purpose. In this case, it just worked out that it was recent. Let's get into the actual Friday Reads portion of this video. Now, I did not actually finish any books this week. I'm really close. I only have an hour left in my audio. And I've had a bit of trouble with the physical book that I'm trying to read, which is The Wrong End of the Telescope by Rabih Alameddine. I mentioned this last week. It was actually due back at the library last weekend, and I held on to it because there were no holds on it. So I figured, what's the harm in keeping it a little longer? And I didn't make a whole lot of progress. And that's not a reflection on the book. I think it's just a matter of the fact that there's a lot of really stressful things going on in the news, specifically with Ukraine and Russia. And this is a book about a trans woman who goes to the island of Lesbos to help with refugees. She is a doctor. And that refugee angle feels charged in the current political climate. And I think that is making it a little difficult for me to get through at the moment. It feels a little too raw and real. So I think what I'm going to do, because I don't want to hold on to this forever, is I'm just going to return it and when I'm in a better mind space, I will circle back. It's always dangerous for me to put something down when I've already started it, because there's a likelihood or a chance that I will not get back to it. And I would hate for that to happen with The Wrong End of the Telescope, because I was enjoying it and I do think it's interesting. And I think there are things about it that I feel like are holding me as a reader at arm's length. And it's difficult to tell if that's a result of current events or if it's something the book is doing. But I feel like once you get further into the book, that will fall away. And I wish I could sort of push through and get to that point, but it's just not happening. And rather than try to beat my head against the wall and try to make this happen, I think I'm just going to return it since it's already overdue. I cannot renew the hold anymore, even though there are no holds on it. So I'm just going to let my headspace fix itself. I apologize for the dog barking, and revisit this at some point in the future. If it ends up winning the Pulitzer, I'll definitely end up revisiting it, because I am trying to read all of the books that win the Pulitzer Prize for fiction. And this is something that will show up in my prediction video, which I'm hoping to launch next week. So stay tuned for that as well. The audio that I have been listening to this week is Don't Cry For Me by Daniel Black. I mentioned this in my last Friday Reads video because I had just started it. I had only listened to the introduction at that point, and now I'm an hour away from finishing it. I had kind of hoped that I would have it done by the time I filmed my Friday Reads video, and that was not in the cards for this week. I'm really loving this book. It would have to fall on its face really hard in this last hour for this not to be one of my favorite reads of 2022. And part of me wants to hold on talking about this book until I'm done, so I can spend a little bit of time talking about all of the things that I love about it. But I feel like I want to gush a little bit already. If you follow along, you know what this book is about, because this was one of my most anticipated books of 2022, and I was really excited about it. This is about a father who is writing letters to his estranged son as he is dying of cancer. The father, not the son, is dying of cancer. His son is gay, and that is the thing that kind of caused the estrangement between them, and now he is writing these letters to his son, telling his life story and his family story to the son, trying to explain his life and his position and why he was the sort of man that he was to his son, hoping that he will understand and hoping that it will sort of fix the division between them, even if it doesn't resolve itself while he is still alive, and even if the son does not respond to the letters. It reminds me in some really great ways of the book that was my favorite read in the year that I read it. I can't remember which year. It might have been 2019. A Place for Us by Fatima Farheen Mirza, which is about a fractured family, and the son grows more estranged from his family over the course of the book. It sort of moves around in time, and you see things from different perspectives. Don't Cry For Me doesn't have that, because you are very specifically getting the father's perspective. But as you move into the last part of A Place for Us, the father finally comes to the forefront and tells his own version of the events that happened. And oh my God, it's like a punch directly in the heart. And I absolutely love it. If you haven't read A Place for Us, do yourself a favor. Pick up a copy. I got this hardcover used from my local bookstore because I listened to it on audio and I loved it so much that I just wanted to have a copy in my library. And Don't Cry For Me definitely has the same feels. It's sort of about toxic masculinity. It's about the ways in which values and society change over time. Basically, the father grew up in a time and place where he was raised by sharecroppers, his grandparents. So the ways they thought about what a man is supposed to do, what a man is supposed to be, what a man is supposed to feel or not feel, and what a woman's role in society is, were very different from the way society moved over the course of his lifetime. And he was never really able to adapt for that. He married a woman who wanted to go to school. He had a son who was very emotional and intelligent in very creative ways, and obviously who was ultimately gay. And he didn't really know how to handle that, because his experience of the world was that you tried to beat things into submission and make them the way that you thought they should be. So he ends up kind of out of place in his own family and out of place in time. And it's a beautiful book. It's a really beautiful book. Like I said, I feel like this would really have to fall on its face in the last hour for this not to be one of my favorite reads of 2022. It's kind of competing with Beloved right now. I don't think anything can top Beloved, because even though I thought Beloved was a really unpleasant reading experience, it's a masterful novel, and I feel like you have to kind of acknowledge that. This is unpleasant in different ways, maybe ways that are a little bit more accessible for a reader, because it deals with the lasting implication of slavery and racism in this country, but it's not as overtly unpleasant. Again, it's really beautifully done, and I would definitely recommend this to you, especially if you were a fan of A Place for Us, or if you're interested in this, maybe check out A Place for Us. But I'm really looking forward to finishing this book and seeing what happens in this last hour, how it resolves. Yeah, because even though I have a physical book, I'm listening to the audio. So we'll see how that goes. I'm not going to make any big predictions about the Pulitzer Prize for next year. I will say I hope this gets attention for the Pulitzer Prize next year, but I don't want to make any big predictions right now, or even say this might be in the running, because last year I talked about The Prophets early on in the year, and then that ended up not really going anywhere over the course of the year. There's still a chance, but I don't want to put that on Don't Cry For Me by Daniel Black. So in terms of what's coming up next, I'm returning the long end of the telescope to the library, and I think I'm going to go to NetGalley for what's next and decide between Violets by Kyung-Suk Shin or The Candy House by Jennifer Egan, because I have early access to both of those on NetGalley, and both of them are being published early in April, so I kind of want to get to them now. So I'll probably decide between one of those and end up reading one of them and give myself a break from library apocalypse. I've been having this problem where a lot of library holds have been coming available at the same time, and I keep trying to cancel a hold, get back on the wait list, and they just become available again. So I think I'm going to let the library be quiet for a little bit, catch up on some of these books that I have on NetGalley, and go from there. Because honestly, it kind of stresses me out a little bit when I have all of these things from the library, which are on a time limit and all of that stuff. I just want to get to these things on NetGalley, which are also kind of on a time limit because I want to read them before they are published, and leave it at that. I just got an audio hold available on Libby, something that I have been waiting for. I'm not going to talk about what it is because I think I'm going to get to it, but I don't know why I would need to be secret. It's The Sentence by Louise Erdrich, so I'm really excited about that. And I am going to listen to it that way. Actually, that was one of the books that was part of my library apocalypse, because it became available at the library about a week ago, and I canceled the hold and got back on the list, and somehow it became available again this week. But now I have the audio on Libby, and I think I'm going to listen to it that way and see what happens with that. So that's probably what my next audio is going to be. No promises, but that's probably what the next one will be. So we shall see what happens with reading this week. Like I said, I'm going to choose between either Violets or The Candy House for my next book that I will read, and then The Sentence is probably going to be the next one that I listen to. I would love to hear what you've been up to this week, what you've been watching, reading, loving, hating, all of that stuff in the comment section down below. We are actually going to be going to Helena this weekend, tomorrow specifically, just a quick day trip. I don't know if we'll be making it to the Montana Book Company because we are there for my mother-in-law's birthday, and like I said, it's just a short trip. We have to get there and back the same day because of the dogs, so I don't know if we'll make it over there. A lot of people have asked me to try to get footage and film inside Montana Book Company. I always forget once we get there, because it's just, I end up talking to people and looking around and enjoying things, and then we leave and I think, oh no, I was supposed to film while we were here. So if we do make it, and if I remember, I'll try to get some footage from the store, but there's a high likelihood that if we do make it to the store, I will forget once again. Sorry, it's just the way things have been. Someday I will remember, and I will film inside Montana Book Company for anyone who has asked. That's our plan for the weekend. You might notice I'm filming in the library again. That is because Joel is in the kitchen making a cake and making dinner for tomorrow as well. We're going to have an early dinner / lunch. I guess, what would you call it, a lunner? So he's in the kitchen making magic with that, and I came to this location, which I love because it has my books, but the lighting isn't great in here. It is what it is. But anyway, that's our plan for the weekend. That's what we've had going on. I'd love to hear what you've had going on, and I will be back. Until next time, happy reading.